Hey everyone, it's Joelle here, and I am bringing you another book review. This is an audiobook review of Karin Slaughter's The Good Daughter. This review is going to contain spoilers. It's also going to contain a lot of trigger warnings and content that may not be suitable for anybody that is not an adult, so proceed with caution. But if you're not really wanting to listen to anything that is a review with lots of spoilers, then go ahead and click away. Thanks for joining. And yeah, so that was your little bit of warning. So let's talk about this, The Good Daughter. This book actually was published and came out in 2017 in August. Now, a little bit of background on Karin Slaughter. She typically writes murder, crime type of thrillers that are set in rural Georgia or Atlanta. So she's very much, her characters are always based in the South. Excuse me. So before I continue on with that, I do want to mention the trigger warnings. There is rape. Rape of minors. There is home invasion. There is murder in front of kids. There is school shootings. Pretty much everything bad that could ever happen happens to this family, and it's really, really sad. So if that's not something that you can sit through, then I definitely don't recommend anything by Karin Slaughter for that matter. I've listened to and read other books by her, and they're just extremely, extremely intense. So proceed with caution. But let's go into the story. Now, if you see me looking down, it's because I have my notes there. This audiobook was very, very long. It was over, I want to say it was at least 20 hours, and it took me at least 2 weeks to actually finish it. And I think because the subject matter, the content is so intense that there's only so much you can take in one sitting of being exposed to things that you're not particularly exposed to regularly, or if you are, it's just very intense. So we start out with a story that is set 28 years ago, excuse me, in a town called Pikeville, Georgia, which is a rural kind of suburb outside of, I'm assuming outside of Atlanta, because they do mention Atlanta a couple of times. So this follows Charlie and Sam. So they're two little girls, and they're about 2 years apart in age. And I want to say one of them was 15 and one of them was 13. Sam's the older sister, Charlie's the younger sister, and their family consists of their mom, who used to be a NASA scientist, very, very smart physicist, scientist, woman who became a stay-at-home mom once she got married to Rusty, who is a defense attorney, and he actually is the kind of attorney who will take on the criminal cases for the criminals that nobody ever wants to take on, people who actually commit things like rape and home invasion and murder and robbery and all that stuff. So he's kind of the guy who gets these people off in court, or you know, at least gets their sentences reduced. So there's a lot of hate towards him, and then it's taken out a lot on these girls in school. They get bullied, and their family's just kind of known, the Quinns, as being like the outcast family because of the work that their dad does. Excuse me. So Charlie and Sam, they're at home with their mom. Their mom is making dinner. Dad's still at work. They get a knock on the door, and it ends up being some two disgruntled guys that unfortunately murder the mom. And well, the whole reason that they're there is because they're after the dad. They're pissed off at the dad because of something that he did, something or another, and you know, they weren't planning on the family being there, but they just so happened to be there, and they didn't want to leave behind anybody, so they unfortunately kill the mom in front of the two little girls. The girls try and make a run for it, and stuff happens after that. And then we fast forward 28 years later, and we're picking up Charlie's kind of story. And Charlie, well, we're left kind of like suspenseful. We don't know what happened to Sam. We know that she got shot in the head, but we don't really know much about her. So at this point, it's assumed that she's dead. So 28 years later, Charlie also is a lawyer. She works in the same office as her dad, but they're not affiliated with one another, so she says. Rusty is kind of this like hard to digest kind of guy who's, you know, he smokes and he drinks and he's just really rough around the edges and he takes on those clients. He's very sarcastic and, you know, he's got just a personality that is you either love him or you hate him, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, you know, we're following Charlie. It's her story, you know, and she is married, but she's kind of going through some issues with her husband, Ben. Her husband, Ben, is the assistant district attorney to the legal system or whatever, and she's in legal. Everybody's in legal for some reason. So they've been separated for, I want to say, like at least 6 months, and she randomly hooks up with this guy at a bar, and their phones kind of get swapped in the midst of everything, because, you know, everybody has iPhones, so everybody's iPhones are mixed up. So she realizes that the next morning, then he's like, hey, I'm a teacher, come meet me at the school. So she goes to meet him at the school, and while they're there, a school shooting takes place. In the middle of everything, there's a school shooting. So she witnesses it, and she hears the gunshots and everything, and she's with this guy named Huck, and he's like a former Marine. So, you know, gunshots and everything bring up stuff like that. And when the police get there, they're taking down this girl named Kelly, who is a 17-year-old girl, and, you know, they like pin her to the ground and they're like beating her and everything, because the police in this town are like really messed up and nobody wants to go up against them. They kind of do their own thing and get away with it. But Charlie's like not going to stand for it, and she goes to stand up for this girl, even though she just murdered a bunch of people. Well, actually, she just murdered a little girl and a man. And the police officers basically just like, what happens is Charlie gets her phone out and she's starting to video all of this, and the police officers aren't having it, so they actually like bust her nose and like hit her and everything. And nobody does anything about it. They just kind of like deny that Charlie, like, they say that she fell or something like that. So corrupt legal system, everything. Anyway, fast forward. Charlie's dad is taking on the case of defending Kelly, who is the school shooter. Well, it kind of turns out that Kelly's a little slow. She's from one of the like trailer park kind of areas near the mountains in Georgia. Are there mountains in Georgia? I guess. And, you know, Charlie's kind of helping her dad and everything with this whole case. So anyway, it's like, Kelly's slow. She really doesn't know what's going on. She's very easily manipulated. If you tell her something, she'll be like, oh yeah, I did do that. I did shoot the people. So we got that whole court case going on. And then we flash back again 28 years ago, and we rehash the whole situation that happened with the home invasion again. So now we're having to listen to the story one more time about the mom getting shot, but we're listening to it from Sam's perspective, not Charlie's perspective. So Sam actually survived, and then 28 years later, we find out that because she was shot in the head, she's dealing with a lot of mobility, vision, memory issues, speech issues, and she works really, really hard to overcome it. She is a lawyer in New York, and her story is that she actually is one of those like copyright lawyers. So she basically takes on the cases where trademark and copyright stuff with companies, and I think she said like tampon disposal things in bathrooms is what she was currently working on. But she gets a call from the husband, Ben, who is actually really close to their dad, saying, hey, you need to come back to Georgia because your dad is in the hospital. She's not very happy about it because she's not talking to her sister. She hasn't been talking to her sister for years. She hasn't really talked to her dad. Her dad still calls her every week. So she ends up going down there, and while her dad's in the hospital, he's like, hey, can you take on this case for me? Because you're the perfect person to help with this case. So Sam gets sucked into this case that she doesn't really even want to do, and she goes to interview the girl Kelly and realizes that this girl is slow, and, you know, she gets sucked into it. She does the the initial hearing to see when a trial is gonna, the plea and all of that stuff. I'm not a legal person at all. So we're following that story. We're following Sam and Charlie, kind of their relationship and everything, how Sam's dealing with her issues as far as being partially blind and mobility and all of that stuff, and her trying to mend her relationship with her sister, all while trying to solve this court case that is happening with this school shooter. So there's a lot of relationship building and rekindling of the sister and sister relationship. Sam trying to help her sister get back together with Ben. Them trying to reform their bond with their dad, who actually ends up dying. And just kind of everything and all the aftermath that ensues with that. And also kind of Charlie dealing with this guy that she slept with who happens to be involved with this case somehow. And long story short, you know, we find out some information about the case. Kelly actually didn't really do it on her own. She was kind of coerced by somebody else. And then they flash back again and they're like, what really happened? So we see Charlie's perspective again and we find out she was like brutally raped, and it's like, listening to it, it's really intense, and I didn't want to hear that and everything. And so then, you know, we go back to the present and we find out that Charlie had a whole bunch of miscarriages and she never told her husband that she was raped when she was a kid. And, you know, they finally get back together and he's like, I don't care about that. You know, I love you, whatever. And it's just like, it's a lot of back and forth between retelling this story and like what really happened back when they were kids and everything. And yeah, so I don't want to go into any more of this story because, you know, I could go on, and this book was like really, really thick. But bottom line, I ended up giving it a 4-star. The reason why is because I was very much invested in the court case drama that was going on with this girl, Kelly, and the school shooting. And I really, really wanted to know more about that. But that story was kind of pushed on the back burner so much that it almost seemed like that story was not important at all. It just happened to be going on. But that was what I was drawn to more than the stuff that happened with the sisters and all of that, which was kind of a bummer. And they kind of ended the court story in the end, and it was just kind of like, meh. And then the sisters, you know, are getting along in the end, and it's like, meh, everybody goes back to their lives. Everybody lives happily ever after. You know, they're dealing with everything, grief and all of that, and the knowing what really happened. And honestly, I think I'm going to have to take a break from adult thrillers because it wasn't something that I finished reading thinking, wow, you know, yeah, that really makes me want to read another Karin Slaughter book. No, after I listened to that / read that, I was like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this. It's too graphic. It's too brutal. And it just was not really something that I particularly wanted to read. But I ended up giving it a 4 because I think it was very well written. I appreciated the narrator of the audiobook. I wish there had been more on that other side court case. Now, basically what I just read on Goodreads is it may or may not be a series. It's kind of up in the air. There's like some novellas, I think, that have been published, but I think the last word was that this is not going to be a continued series because Karin Slaughter has other cop kind of series. So yeah, but that's pretty much it on my The Good Daughter review with spoilers. The end. Let me know if you guys have read or listened to anything by Karin Slaughter. I have actually listened to and read other stories by her, and you know, yeah, they were graphic and everything, but usually in between I take a break and listen to some like YA or horror or something instead. But this one just really makes me not want to listen or read anything by her for a really long time. I think I can do like one Karin Slaughter a year. But yeah, let me know what your favorite adult thrillers are. Let me know if you've read or listened to anything by Karin Slaughter, if you've listened to this one, if you have the same feelings as I do, if you want to know more from this family, or if you're like, I'm done with the Quins. yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback. Definitely check me out on my Goodreads, listed below. Also, Instagram is where I'm most active, so you can get some good information on there. And that's pretty much it. Also, feel free to thumbs up this video if you liked it. I got my bookshelf now, so we have some books in the background, and this stuff could potentially be rearranging. We have no idea yet, but of course, the Pretty Little Liars are the ones in view right now, so you can tell what kind of books I like. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.